All right, man, peace. So for those of you brothers out there who happen to follow the NFL, and especially the New York Football Giants, you know that as of right now, one of the main narratives in the National Football League are the ongoing contractual negotiations between the New York Giants and their star wide receiver and also MK athlete, Mr. Odell Beckham. Of course, Odell Beckham has stated that he wants to become the highest paid player in the National Football League. Do I think that he's going to be successful in that endeavor? No, I do not. But I do believe that he plans on holding out until he becomes the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Now, will he be successful in that endeavor? It's possible. But I do believe that if the Giants choose to not pay him, that Odell Beckham will be strategically moved to one of the top markets in the NFL, most likely the LA Rams or someone of that nature. Now, the LA Rams allegedly were looking into possibly trading for Odell Beckham before the season, but supposedly they found out some very seedy aspects to Odell's life that they did not approve of. This is allegedly. But once again, in my view, it's very obvious that Mr. Odell Beckham is an MK athlete, not only by his affiliations and associations, certain markers that I see that he lives by that are indicative of his lifestyle, as well as certain numbers that he allegedly has chosen to wear on the football field, the numbers 3, 13, and 33. So anyway, they're going to talk about Mr. Odell Beckham, and I'm going to chime in.
I got What's going on? Building, I'm happy about it, but not so happy about this. My New York Football Giants, deal or no deal? When it comes to Odell Beckham, it is no deal. That, according to our Josina Anderson, OBJ's agent, left town with no resolution after working diligently to get...
You know what's so interesting about Odell? For someone who's so flamboyant, he has held on to this blonde hairstyle for about 3 years now. Normally, players or athletes that are flamboyant, they like to change up their hair dye. Like Dennis Rodman, he would go from blonde to green to strawberry to honey blonde, and then he might have numbers or certain letters within the dye job that were different colors. For some reason, Odell Beckham chooses to hold on to that blonde hairstyle. I'm already on record as telling many of you brothers that listen to my channel that the blonde hairstyle, in regards to the Monarch program, and also in regards to quote-unquote pagan mythology, is associated with the god Harpocrates. And when I say god, I mean lowercase g. The god Harpocrates, his abbreviated name is Harpo, or as he was known in ancient Kemet, Heru-Pa-Khared, or Horus the Child. Of course, that's in reference to Heru as a child. He became known in Rome, I believe it was, as Cupid. In Greece, he was known as Eros. And of course, he was known as the god of love, silence, and also mischief. And when I see Mr. Odell Beckham, I have very little doubt that mischief is clearly a part of his programming. He is an agent of chaos. He will always be an agent of chaos while he is on the scene, especially since it is very clear that the powers that be want him to be a major focal point. Once again, he wears the number 13 in the NFL, and the number 13 is symbolic for chaos, particularly on the left-hand side. The number 13 is symbolic for chaos and also for a witch coven. In college, Odell wore the numbers 3 and the number 33. The number 33 is for mind activation. Why is that? Because your spinal column has 33 segments leading to your brain stem. So, of course, that represents mind activation. The number 3 represents the coming together of opposing forces. So, in other words, the male energy and the female energy, they come together to form the quote-unquote divine hermaphrodite. A lot of the things that I'm saying, I'm sure people are listening to now and saying, what the hell is this guy talking about? But for many of you brothers that have been on my channel for a long time, you're aware of what I'm saying. But just pay very close attention to Mr. Odell Beckham as his career transpires. I guarantee you that he's always going to be in the crosshairs of the media for doing something controversial or something stupid.
To get it done, but could not agree on Beckham's market value. New York is currently valuing Beckham at a total annual average below Chiefs wide receiver Sammy Watkins, who has an AAV of $16 million in his current deal. Right now, Antonio Brown is the highest paid receiver at $17 million a year. Stephen A.
You know, before Stephen A. answers, I'm just reflecting back on Odell Beckham before he was drafted. I'll never forget that even on the NFL Network, they were highlighting his performance at the NFL Combine. And I was like, why are they spending so much time and attention on this one player? Of course, he was a standout while he was at LSU. But it just seemed very strange to me that they were spending so much time highlighting Odell Beckham as if they knew what he was going to become all the way from college into the NFL Combine.
Should Odell be the highest paid receiver in the league?
No, he should not.
Well, I don't understand that type of question. When you say, should Odell Beckham be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, he should be whatever the Giants are willing to pay him. He has the right to ask for his salary to be the highest amongst all wide receivers in the NFL. And to tell you the truth, I'm sure that Antonio Brown and Julio Jones are rooting for Odell to be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. Why is that? Because that ups the market on wide receiver salaries.
Should not. Odell Beckham Jr. is electrifying. He deserves to be a top 3 receiver in this game. Paid, that is. He does not deserve to be paid more than Antonio Brown. He does not deserve to be paid more than Julio Jones. Antonio Brown and Julio Jones are studs. Now, obviously...
Well, Odell Beckham is a stud also. And what all 3 of those players have in common is that none of them have won a world championship as of yet. Now, unfortunately for Odell, he had that terrible performance against the Green Bay Packers a couple of years ago. And that is going to be something that will be hanging over his head until he can redeem himself. Do I believe that Antonio Brown and Julio Jones are better players than Odell Beckham right now? Yes, I do. I would take Antonio Brown over Odell Beckham. As a matter of fact, I believe that Antonio Brown is the best wide receiver that I've ever seen other than Jerry Rice. And I'm sure that many people are going to find that very controversial, especially since most people consider Randy Moss to be the best wide receiver other than Jerry Rice that they've ever seen. There are many who believe that Randy Moss is the greatest wide receiver that they've ever seen. But to me, Randy Moss is the football version of Allen Iverson. I think that he has a tremendous amount of swag and great charisma in how he plays. But in regards to that little je ne sais quoi, those idiosyncrasies that allow great players to transcend the moment in big spots, Randy Moss just did not have it. All you have to do is look at his Super Bowl numbers. Randy Moss was nowhere to be found when you needed him the most. Jerry Rice was always there when you needed him the most. Now, in regards to Antonio Brown, he has not quite had the opportunity to show what he can do in the Super Bowl, but I've seen him in the playoffs. And once again, I'm sure that many cats are going to disagree with me when I say this, but to me, Antonio Brown is the best wide receiver I've ever seen other than Jerry Rice. He can do everything on the football field. He can and will run every and any route, and he shows up for every game. And he does not have any meltdowns on the field that impede his performance. He will have meltdowns on the sideline, but not on the field.
Odell Beckham Jr. with his speed in his hands is electrifying, but in their own right, they're electrifying themselves. But here's the key thing. They're also more reliable. They're on the field of play more than he is. They participate in postseason play more than he has.
Well, that's a bit of an unfair criticism. Odell Beckham has had one major injury. Julio Jones has been nicked up over the course of his career as well. Would I take Julio Jones over Odell? Yes, I would. Because I think that Julio Jones brings a little bit more to the table because of his size. But Odell Beckham, pound for pound, inch for inch, is probably the most naturally gifted wide receiver in the NFL. I just don't think that he's as good as Antonio Brown overall. I think that Antonio Brown is a 10 out of 10, basically, in every category that you would want a wide receiver to be tested on. Every parameter, Antonio Brown maxes out 10 out of 10. You can even get Julio Jones to disappear. It's extremely difficult to get Antonio Brown to disappear. In regards to Odell, his quarterback is Eli Manning, arguably the most overrated quarterback of the last 25 years. What Eli has going for him is that he was able to win a couple of Super Bowls. Strangely enough. I say strangely enough because he's never won a playoff game other than those 2 Super Bowl runs. He's never had a playoff run where he won just 1 game or 2 games. For some reason, he's had 2 magic carpet rides. He's also led the NFL in interception 3 or 4 times. Eli Manning is a player who's been able to last in the NFL because of his last name and 2 magic carpet runs in the playoffs. So those are things that are being held over Odell Beckham's head. In addition to that, the Giants have had arguably the worst offensive line in the NFL the last 2 seasons. If you have bad offensive line play, that stops your receiver from having the time that he needs to get downfield and make explosive plays.
And when you take that into consideration, along with the fact that he is coming off an injury max, there is no way on earth that Odell Beckham Jr. deserves to be paid more than them. Now, again, he is electrifying. So based on his talent, based on his box office appeal and the like in an age where, if for example, Max, a hard salary cap did not exist, you might have the argument because you could take box office appeal into consideration.
Well, actually, Stephen A. Smith, box office appeal will reverberate in regards to selling out stadiums, not so much due to a hard salary cap. That's why the Seattle Seahawks are willing to pay Russell Wilson whatever he wants, because they understand that he's going to bring butts to the seats, and he's also going to lead them to 10 wins just by him starting all 16 games. So your assertion is a bit erroneous in my view. Beyond that, I'm still having a hard time trying to figure out how either one of these two people here can assess whether or not Odell Beckham, quote unquote, deserves to get paid the most amongst any wide receiver in the NFL. You get paid whatever the team that you play for is willing to pay you. That's the bottom line of it. The appropriate question really for this topic should be, where do you rank Odell Beckham amongst the NFL's wide receivers? And then if you believe that the NFL's wide receivers should be paid according to your own personal ranking.
But the fact is, with the hard cap, that's not the case in the National Football League. So we've got to go based on your production, your availability, your reliability, the outside stuff in terms of what he's been in the news for. My attitude is you insulate yourself with that by giving him those dollars. But
he's always going to be in the news. For however long he's in the NFL, Odell Beckham will always be in the news. He is an agent of chaos. He is a monarch athlete. He's also an apprentice to the Luciferian / Kabbalistic master Drake, who is an industry plant.
But in the same breath, stipulating in the contract,
like have a clause,
that exact clause that you do stuff that impugns the integrity of this organization, and we believe compromise is our bottom line. We're gonna have a talk. We're gonna revisit that. Outside of that, he deserves to be top 3, but he does not deserve to be paid more than Antonio Brown. He does not deserve to be paid more than Julio Jones.
Like the glasses. I like the tie.
Did you like?
Even you left the gold button on the blazer.
The glass has been here,
and it's all coordinated. It's very sharp today.
Yeah.
Very sharp. New and sharp.
I think I am every day. You might want to step out from the monochromatic suit.
No. This is
smooth.
This is
smooth.
But it's just the same.
Yes.
I'm talking lack of diversification.
Right. I hear what you're saying.
Versatility. But it is smooth.
But the reason I bring it up is because the outfit is sharper than the argument today, Steve.
Quite frankly, I agree with you, sir. And I had a feeling that you were giving Stephen A. Smith those compliments as a setup for a little dig at his frivolous arguments. Look at the photo that they have of Odell Beckham in the background. A lot of these major sports networks are in the know in regards to what these athletes, many of these major athletes, what they actually are. Look at the bugged out look on this dude's face.
Right off the top of the show.
Go ahead, man.
This is why Odell Beckham Jr. should obviously be the highest paid receiver in the game.
Okay.
What is that really based on? Is it just based on whether or not you're the best? Because I said before last season or 2 seasons ago, he's already the best receiver in the league. Matter of fact, tell you the truth, halfway through his rookie year, I thought that's the best receiver in football.
I agree with that. I watched Odell Beckham. They played a game against the Seattle Seahawks in Odell Beckham's rookie year, and he absolutely roasted and toasted Richard Sherman. And I said to myself, yo, this dude is right there with anybody in the NFL right now.
Well, truth be told, but you have to see how is he going to be durable? He's had some injuries. Is he going to be okay off the field, be a good leader? There have been some issues. Is he going to catch passes when you need him most? He dropped some in the playoffs. I'm straight up with it, man. I'm rooting for Odell because he's a New York football giant. I tell you.
Well, that's a prominent part of your argument, Max Kellerman. It's very clear that you're a fanboy.
I tell you what I feel.
Okay.
And hard to make the argument right now based on the resume that he's ahead of Antonio Brown or Julio Jones.
Okay.
But that makes him top 3, right?
Right.
This is how receivers get paid. This is how it works, where players get paid in the NFL. Number 1, what do they think you're going to do in the future? You do not get paid on past performance. That is foolhardy of a team to pay you on past performance.
Okay.
Only insofar as it's an indicator of future performance, a predictor of it. He's 2 years younger than Antonio Brown or Julio Jones, and he's a better player than they were at the same age. In fact, I would argue, game for game, discounting clutch situations, which is why he's actually the best guy now in any given moment in any given game.
Once again, I think that fully healthy Odell Beckham, pound for pound, inch for inch, is the most naturally gifted and talented wide receiver in the NFL. But in regards to who brings everything to the table, that's Mr. Antonio Brown.
He's the most unstoppable guy, and he's 2 years younger than them. Why does that make a difference? Because the way this works in the NFL is they go, here's all this money, we're going to prorate it over a number of years. In other words, here's $100 million for the next 5 years, so it comes out to 20 a year, right? The more years you have in front of you that they believe, the younger you are, the more productive they believe you'll be in the future, the more money they'll give you up front because they can prorate it over more years. Average annual value, I don't know that he'll be the number one paid because maybe they get him to 18 or something like that. But he should have the most guaranteed money of any receiver. That's one. Two.
That's a long one argument. We'll go ahead.
The other way that you get that determines how you get paid is who else they got to pay on the team. Eli Manning is going to be done before too long. They don't have a quarterback waiting in the wings. Yeah.
I'm only interrupting the argument for one thing. You don't get to change that narrative.
Why is that?
Here's the reality. We're talking about what he deserves, not what makes sense per se in terms of who else you got to pay. Don't bring that up. We're focusing on what he deserves.
Well, once again, sir, when you ask a question like that, what does someone quote unquote deserve? How are you evaluating that? Are you evaluating what someone deserves, quote unquote, based on your personal opinion of where they rank? That's why I stated that a better question would be, where does Odell Beckham rank amongst the NFL's crop of wide receivers, and should he be paid commensurate to your fictitious ranking? Because when we're talking about financial negotiations, you deserve whatever your employer or benefactor is willing to pay you. That's how that works. And once again, I'm sure that Antonio Brown and Julio Jones are rooting for Odell to become the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, because what that does is that raises the financial market for the top crop of receivers in the league.
Based on his talent, his level of production, and what you're projecting he will be in the future.
You're changing that. The question is, should Odell be the highest paid receiver in the league? Should he be?
Sure.
So what is that actually determined by? What I mentioned about future performance.
Okay.
And who else does the team have to pay in a hard cap?
Absolutely. Max Kellerman clearly understands this question better than you do, Stephen A. Smith, and I'm sure that you're the one that came up with the question.
So hold on. Go ahead. So, who do they have to pay? Even if they drafted a quarterback with they were the worst team in football this year, and they drafted a quarterback first overall next year, you're not going to have to pay him for a while. Landon Collins, you're going to have to pay, as Josina Anderson mentioned yesterday to us off camera. You're going to have to pay that guy. Might be the best safety in the league. He's a great player.
Well, him and Earl Thomas.
Otherwise, Saquon Barkley's a running back. You don't have to pay him now. You may never have to pay him, even if he's great. Look at Le'Veon Bell. Who do that team have to pay? You're going to give your money to Odell.
Respond to that direct point. First of all, Max Kellerman, you bring that up, and I'm saying to you, no one's arguing that he's a top 3 receiver in the game. But the question is, in terms of should he be paid as the highest paid receiver in football? The fact of the matter is that if he was paid number 2, is he insulted? If he's the number 3 paid receiver in all of football, is he insulted?
Absolutely, he's insulted, as he should be. Whatever you consider yourself the best wide receiver in the NFL, which I'm sure that Odell Beckham considers himself, even if NFL fans and NFL pundits and media figures like yourself, Stephen A. Smith, may consider Odell 3rd or 4th, wherever you go across the NFL, if you're a top wide receiver, even an A.J. Green considers himself the best wide receiver in the NFL. And when he goes to the Cincinnati Bengals front office to negotiate, he's not saying, well, you know what, I want you guys to pay me as the 4th best receiver in the NFL. He's going to say, I want to be paid like the best wide receiver in the NFL. And once again, all the other top wide receivers are going to be rooting for him to raise the financial market. That's how that works. That's what that question that you asked entails. Should Beckham be the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL? That's why Max Kellerman is answering that question with a far greater deal of proficiency than you, because he's assessing what the New York Giants front office would be assessing. And you're trying to answer the question like a fanboy would.
You trying to tell me that because we're talking about $1 million to $2 million guaranteed extra per year, that's what we're talking about, the difference there. So my point to you is that...
And that makes all the difference in the world, sir.
Let's not argue and fret over the fact that, oh my goodness, you're saying he should be number 1, I'm saying he should be number 3. It's all relative, baby. That's number 1.
No, sir. It's not all relative. That's easy for you to say because it's not your money. But Stephen A. Smith, if you consider yourself ESPN's number 1 sports personality, but you're the third highest paid. Aren't you going to go to the executives and tell them I should be the highest paid media personality on your network? And if they respond back by saying, well, what's the difference? 1, 2, or 3? Who cares? I'm sure that you're going to care, sir.
Number 2, I really, really, really hate to hurt your feelings.
You're not going to hurt my feelings, and I'd like to get involved in this debate when I'm allowed to.
I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you. Because.
And I bet you Molly Karam is most likely going to make the best points of all 3 of these people, because when it comes to football, she tends to know more than either one of them.
Because Max Kellerman and Mollywood, we didn't have a discussion about Eli Manning and what he's going to bring to the table. Some trepidations that exist out there about him.
I'm good with Eli.
Some trepidation exists out there. My point to you is this. No matter how great of a receiver
Eli Manning is like that old saggy titty wife that ain't going nowhere.
You are. We all know that when you're a quarterback, if you ain't that good, or if you don't have protection, they
just got him a new line.
Well, we'll see.
And running back.
He thinks it's suspect.
We see how they perform. I said that. But number 3, and more importantly, here's the deal: Antonio Brown. Because see, you talked about Antonio Brown very disrespectful.
Who, me?
Yes, you just
no,
did.
stop.
When you're gonna sit up there and say that Odell Beckham Jr., whose greatest season was 101 receiving yards, who by the way went to the playoffs, and the lone time we saw him in the playoffs, targeted 11 times, 4 receptions, 28 yards, dropped a few passes. I recall a dude by the name of Max Kellerman coming right here on this set in Bristol, Connecticut, on national television for First Take, going off.
I agree with you about that, Stephen A. Smith. That is the one major black mark on Odell Beckham's resume. Well, that and the dust-up that he had with Josh Norman. And to be quite frank with you, I don't think that Odell's been the same wide receiver since that blow-up with Josh Norman. I don't even remember him ever dropping a pass before that Josh Norman situation. And he's had a bit of the drops since then.
About his boy Odell Beckham Jr. And not only do I recall that, I recall Max Kellerman say, correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Moderator, Mollywood. This man said this, quote, you want to get paid, you got to show up when it's time. And Odell Beckham Jr., you didn't do it. Those were not my words. Those were yours. So my point to you is this. Now we go to Antonio Brown. This is my last point, and then I'll leave it be. Antonio Brown, who's been with the Steelers since 2000. Let me just work. These are the last 5 seasons. This is the man Odell Beckham Jr. deserves to be paid more. 110 receptions, 1,499 yards. 129 receptions, 1,698 yards. 136 receptions, 1,834 yards. 106 receptions, 1,284 yards. And last year, 101 receptions for 1,533 yards.
He's not pushing Jerry Rice. That's the point. Antonio Brown is pushing Jerry Rice statistically.
I want to ask Max something.
I agree with that, sir. Antonio Brown is pushing Jerry Rice statistically. I'm just not sure if he's going to be able to carry those numbers into his 30s because he's such a small receiver and he's so dependent on explosiveness and fast twitch muscle fibers, as well as having that quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, constantly targeting him. How's he going to look when they bring in a new QB and he loses a bit of explosiveness? That's going to be interesting to watch as he goes into his 30s. But I'm already on record. Antonio Brown is the second best wide receiver I've ever seen. Better than Michael Irvin. Better than Chris Carter. Yes, better than Randy Moss. Why is that? Because I can count on Antonio Brown. Now, Randy Moss is the most spectacular wide receiver I've ever seen. He's more spectacular than Jerry Rice. But the spectacle aspect, to me, is only one component. What you do game in, game out, that's far more important to me than a player who can jump over 3 guys and make one-handed catches like a Randy Moss could in regular season Game 7. But when we get to the NFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, you disappear. I know that Antonio Brown is never going to disappear.
I'm actually on your side here. With the Miami boat trip, I was really against it, spoke out on it, and you said if he shows up and gets the job done, I don't care if he didn't get the job done. We got that.
Well, that was another chaotic moment from Mr. Odell Beckham. Once again, Odell Beckham is going to be a source of chaos for however long he's in the public eye. Because it's very clear to me, just by that hairstyle and the numerological aspects of the numbers that he has quote-unquote chosen for himself, that he is under that Hippocrates programming for chaos and mischief.
Got that. We got the issue with the girl, the white powdery substance in the hotel room, eating the pizza in the bed, whatever is that.
But he was eating pizza.
Or whatever. He was eating pizza. I'm not saying he was.
Yeah, I bet he was.
he was doing anything with that white powdery substance
Sure.
or the girl, whatever. It was on video. She filmed him, whatever the deal was. The fake urinating on the field cost.
And the chick that he was in the hotel room with was most likely an agent of chaos herself. I tell you brothers all the time, these people like Amber Rose and Black China that always keep their names in the news for whatever reason, who have no talent whatsoever, they're plants in the entertainment industry. That's why you see they're always hooked up with some rapper or some athlete. Their job is to watch them and also put them in precarious situations to constantly destabilize them and let them understand that they're always under surveillance.
Costing the team penalties, that kind of thing. How can he set the market? How can he be the highest paid receiver in the league with these kind of trust issues?
Posers what the team.
All he can do is ask. If they choose to not pay him commensurate with what he thinks he's worth, then he can move on to somewhere else.
Team will use against him, absolutely. But you want to bet they want him? They're using those as negotiating points to try to keep the salary down.
He screwed himself, Max.
And by the way, you're right, and they may be successful using those points against him in order to negotiate the price down. But if you're a team and you're willing to give a guy $17 million a year, you think you don't really value him at 20, or you think you can save a few dollars by saying, "Oh, look at all these things." Let me say quickly, Stephen A., do you know who wants Odell to set the market more than anyone?
Thank you, sir. You're about to make your best point, and really the only relevant point.
Other receivers, especially
Antonio Brown and Julio Jones, next man up, sets the market.
I don't think he's going to be able to because of what I just said.
I'm not debating that. Of course they want that. I mean, that's the bottom line. Do you know? Listen, man. I hope your contract ensues. I hope you get paid lovely, brother. I hope you get paid lovely because you know who's gonna follow up, right? Of course. I understand how this works, but the point that I'm trying to make to you is this: we're talking about a level of production. I'm saying take the off the field stuff out of the equation.
Yeah.
Well, listen, here's what I mean by that. It's a negotiation. They're going to bring it up, but at the end of the day, Odell Beckham Jr., don't try to make him the modern day T.O. Don't try to sit up there and use off-field excuses to justify lowballing him or mistreating him based on his on-field. Has he?
Well, those won't be excuses, Stephen A. Smith. Those will be reasons.
Has he ever been arrested? Has he ever been incarcerated? Has he ever missed a game because of off-field transgressions? Has it ever happened? The answer is no. It has nothing to do with my argument. He doesn't deserve to be vilified for that. I'm only saying.
To just argue he didn't show up to a game because of
three.
off-field
Okay,
transgressions. And that would be in Green Bay.
Let me point out a few more things.
All right, last thing.
Do his teammates like him or dislike him?
They like
They
him.
like
His
him.
teammates like him.
That's right.
Allegedly. You don't know how much his teammates like him or not. They seem to like him, but I'm not quite sure that that's a factor when it comes to wide receiver in their negotiations.
That's right. He's not a bad teammate. His teammates like him. The one knock against Odell that I will admit freely is stopping me from right now saying he's the best receiver in the league is he's played in one playoff game. He dropped costly passes. Period. That's it. That doesn't mean he's going to do it
That's the main black mark, and also the Josh Norman game.
in the future.
I understand
as
that.
he did it in the past.
And I'm saying I'm not going to make that person based on your description just now. That person does not deserve to be the highest paid receiver in football over Antonio Brown or Julio Jones.
Yeah, I think he could have been, but again, like I'll say, I think he screwed himself. By the way, Cleveland Browns receiver Jarvis Landry told ClevelandGuard.com he's lobbying his team to trade for his former teamate and good friend
Before
Odell
we
Beckham,
move
because
on,
I'm sure he'd love to go to Cleveland.
Hey, Molly, smiling for the cameras. Molly, let me put your Giants fan on the
Oh,
spot.
my God.
Does Odell Beckham Jr. deserve to be the highest paid receiver in football?
No, because of what I just told you.
Okay.
Because of,
Right, I
because
just
of
wanna
all
make sure.
those incidences.
She's
Based
just
on
trying to
talent.
She's trying to save $3 million a year to pay.
Molly Kerm stated based on talent. That's been my point about Odell Beckham. I do believe that pound for pound, he's the most naturally gifted and talented wide receiver. But the best wide receiver, no, he is not. Also, brothers, pay very close attention. Odell Beckham came out of LSU, as did Ben Simmons, who I also believe is an MK athlete. Certainly a Luciferian, there's no doubt in my mind in regards to Ben Simmons. I'll be covering him in another video. And also, of course, Shaquille O'Neal. But anyway, peace.